ZQ kills the conversation. You should really, no matter what your goals are, no matter how competitive or conflictual or what's happening, you really should never leave a conversation having asked 0 questions. It's almost universally a sign of conversational failure. For whatever reason, many of our instincts in conversation lead us to fail to show other people that we're listening to them. The people that we think of as sort of charismatic and good conversationalists, often this is what they're doing.
Allison, welcome, Fearless Thinkers.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. I'm so happy to be here with
Uh,
you.
I know, and with you, I've been looking forward to this, and I am just so excited about the possibility of having a conversation about conversations.
It's so meta, isn't it?
It really is. It
Yep.
really is. You know, one of the things that I've just been amazed in getting into your work is that you point out that conversation, it's something that we do from just a year or so after birth. But even though it's something we do all the time, it can be a lot more complex than it appears.
Hmm.
And I'm just curious, we feel like we should be experts, but we're really often far from perfect. Why so often do we underestimate the intricacies in conversation?
Yeah, just like you said, it's this activity that we start learning how to do when we're so young, a year and a half old,
Yeah.
and we practice doing it with a huge array of partners over and over every day of our lives. And by the time we get to adulthood, it feels like we should be experts or that we should be perfect or that all of our conversations should be great or fine or easy. And when you start to look under the hood of the mechanics of conversation and how they unfold and the unbelievable complexity that our brains are managing during a live conversation, you start to realize, oh, it's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
simple. And of course, even the best adult communicators have lots of room for improvement. And even the best conversationalists are going to have some that are awesome and some that are just fine, and maybe some that are terrible, because when you look under the hood, conversation is really complicated.
Yeah. What are some of the things that contribute to that complexity?
Well, you're doing an incredible it's a coordination game, as we call it,
Yeah.
as scientists call it. You're coordinating many things. Above the surface, you're coordinating all of the verbal content, the words you're saying to each other. So coordinating just that is hard. You have to take turns speaking and not speaking, right? You're coordinating how things sound, the tone of your voice, the volume, all of it, the acoustic properties. You're also coordinating your nonverbals with each other. How are we moving our faces and our bodies? Right now we're doing it through a little rectangle on a computer. Um, and beneath all of that stuff that you can see on the surface, the words, the nonverbals, the sounds and acoustics, is just a vast universe of psychology, within each human mind.
Right.
I have goals, I have beliefs, things that I believe to be true, I have emotions, I have aspects of my identity that you can't see on the outside, and all of that you also have. And so even when on the surface we're talking about a topic like lunch or our blazers or our work, we are also actually talking about all of those other things that are beneath the surface. We're having these gentle, indirect conversations about our
Right.
identities and our feelings and our beliefs.
Yeah. And
Um,
kind of
and
reacting from that space as well, and sometimes predictably and sometimes surprisingly, and
yes, of
yeah.
course. As some of the things are foreseeable
Uh-huh.
and many of them are not. And you need to react. Every time I talk, you have to react to that new, spontaneous, immediate context that I've just set for you. And
Yeah.
our brains are not supercomputers. So doing that fluidly and uh, perfectly every time is not the right expectation.
There are lots of different types of conversations that we get involved in, and I know that when you started at Harvard, one of the areas that you focused on was negotiation,
Yeah.
and that's kind of in some ways, a very structured, particular type of conversation, and I'm curious, having started from that place, what is it that uh, prompted you to start thinking about conversations more broadly?
I think the world of negotiation exists. It's a course that's taught at every business school and law school. It's a field of study in behavioral science
Mhm,
that has existed for decades, probably because it's so structured. It makes it a little bit easier to study. It makes it a
mhm.
little bit easier to create frameworks to understand it. Um, and it's really, and we have to do it a lot. We have to
Yeah.
negotiate things all the time at work, outside of work, in our relationships. After teaching that, doing research like that and teaching the negotiation course for, the course itself, probably 4 or 5 years, and doing research for maybe 10 years, I started to feel that, well, 2 things. 1, I didn't feel like our MBA students at Harvard needed to be taught to be more strategic. Actually, they're already quite strategic. Um,
Maybe even cultivating an overstrength there.
that's right. Maybe we're double clicking on something that doesn't need to be double
Right.
clicked on. And also, it feels like, as you said, it's a structured thing, but it's also a relatively narrow thing. The main goal in a negotiation is persuasion, right? Like, or it's anytime 2 or more people disagree and are trying to reach agreement. That is a very small sliver of the vast constellation of motives that humans care about, things that they care about. It matters, and we do care about it. We care about influence and persuasion, but we also care about connection. We care
Mhm.
about joy. We care about love. We care about trust. We care about privacy. We care about protecting our time. And I felt like those motives were a little bit boxed out if we're focusing narrowly on persuasion and
Yeah.
influence.
And so you evolved into this study of conversation, and you teach a course at Harvard Business School called Talk. You've got an amazing book called Talk, and, it's not just the title of a course and the title of a book, but it's also an acronym, that provides a structure to thinking about this. Perhaps you can give us kind of a high level, and then we'll delve into each of them and explore them a little bit, each of the components here.
I have to get something off my chest to start. I don't like acronyms. As a general preference, I just have to say that, but I love this acronym. Because I think it does what we were talking about, which is it very ambitiously tries to capture the full spectrum, the full landscape of the social world and sort of all the things that humans care about and are reaching for in their conversations. T stands for topics. Topics are the fundamental building blocks of our conversations, what we talk about. A stands for asking questions,
Mhm.
also answering them. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah. L is for levity, and levity, as we'll see, is about not just humor, but also warmth. Really, any mood that tug us away from boredom and disengagement, which is a secret killer of conversation. And the K stands for kindness. Um, and kindness, we attack quite concretely. I think everyone learns as children to hold up kindness as a virtue, an aspirational virtue. But I spent my whole life wondering, well, but what do kind people actually think about and do? Like, how do we be actually kind from one moment to the next? And I think science and this course that I'm teaching, we've come to some pretty concrete learnings about how kinder people behave with others in conversation. Uh, and so, and in a way, all of the maxims, the TAL topics, asking levity, they're all sort of um, building towards this virtue of kindness.
Yeah. You mentioned the science, and I know that one of the things that's kind of amazing about what you've done in talking about conversations, it's not just theoretical, it's grounded in empirical research, so forth,
Yeah.
which is just so interesting. And one of the areas that I was surprised a little bit about was in terms of the T, topics, because, of course, those are the building blocks. That's the stuff we're gonna talk about.
Mhm.
But you you talk about the importance of actually preparing ahead of time And I could imagine a lot of people would feel that's really awkward, or aren't I going to get stiff if I'm doing that? How can I have a natural conversation if I've got a whole list of things to talk about?
So we've asked thousands of people about their instincts around topic prep. I also always ask my students every semester. First, I make them prep topics, and then I ask them, "How annoyed were you with me that I made you prep topics?" And so, between my students and thousands of research participants, it is very clear that there are a lot of skeptics about topic prep. Many people feel like they don't need to prep topics because, especially in close relationships, they'll just know what to talk about. Um, and 2, if they do prep topics, they people worry that it will make conversations feel overly scripted and stilted and wooden or insincere in some way. Um,
Yeah.
it is linked to this idea, this aversion to topic prep is linked to the idea of the myth of naturalness. It's a
I mean,
phrase.
some people aren't just naturally great at this.
Well, it's so funny. It's almost like we see other people who are great at conversation. We see them being
Yeah,
charismatic. We see them, hosting amazing podcasts. We see whatever. We're eavesdropping all the time. We're seeing wonderful moments of connection and romance and professional
yeah,
success driven by conversation. And when we see that happen, you kind of feel like, oh, that happened easily for them or spontaneously because they're very talented and skilled. And you kind of feel like, "Oh, I should be the same way." Like, conversation is spontaneous, and I need to just become more quick-witted and more and smarter and know more things and smoother. But what you don't see when you watch other people interact is all the effort, the private effort that is their little duck feet paddling under the surface during the conversation, but also those duck feet paddling under the surface for their entire life that where they were potentially building conversational skills that led them to the moment when they could actually deploy them and be great at it, or fumbling or whatever they're doing. And so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be great, and it relates to this idea of topic prep because, literally anything you can do to offload the complexity and cognitive effort that's required during a conversation is going to be helpful to you, and topic prep is so obviously one of those things. If you can think ahead before you're eye to eye with somebody and lost in the chaos of the moment, you can think ahead, "Oh, what has been happening in their life recently?" Or, "What are we supposed to be working on together today?" Or, "What's the most important thing we need from this meeting?" Or, "Oh, yeah, how's their kid doing? They were sick last time we were talking. I should ask them how they're doing." Any of that sort of work that you can do before the conversation starts makes the conversation so much smoother, easier. You're more likely to land on topics that are actually productive and enjoyable. It pushes you to focus on your partner more than yourself, makes you feel less anxious because when you encounter those moments when you don't know what to say, you'll actually have an idea of what you can say. Um, it also reduces blurting. If you think ahead a little bit about stuff you don't wanna raise,
Oh,
then
the do's and don'ts on the
there's
conversation. Yeah,
don't. The topic
right.
prep is both what do I want to raise and what don't I want to raise, and so it reduces, unfortunate foot and mouth moments, in our conversations too.
Well, how much prep is really required? Because I could imagine some situations where, like, if you're gonna have an interview, and of course, that's a very special kind of conversation, you might prepare a lot there.
It's a great question. I actually think that's the best objection to the idea of topic prep is saying like, "Yeah, yeah, I get that. It sounds awesome. It will help me, but I don't have
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I don't have extra wiggle room in my day, in my life, in my mind to be devoting to prep." Here's the really beautiful part. In our studies, we randomly assign people to prep topics or not,
Mhm.
and then we can play around with how they prep topics. And one of the most exciting things that we found is that you can give them shorter and shorter windows of time to do it. Even when we give people only 30 seconds of topic prep time, you still see these very meaningful increases in outcomes like enjoyment and productivity and lowered anxiety, all of the things that we care about during the conversation. So the argument of I don't have time for this, I wanna push people on. Imagine that you see a friend, like, let's imagine you're at work in a big building, long hallway.
Right,
I see you, Andy, at the end of the hallway. I
right,
know I'm gonna get to you in 10 seconds.
right.
In those 10 seconds, I can push myself to think about you and what we might talk about. I
Yeah,
can think, "Oh, yeah, I know Andy went to Dubai recently and was working on some really important stuff. I'm gonna ask him about that. I'm gonna remember to ask him about that.
yeah,
I know he has a really wonderful family, a wonderful son. I'm gonna ask how his son is doing."
yeah,
That will make the conversation better even in 10 seconds when you greet each other in the middle of that hallway. And of course, it's not everything is needs to happen immediately before. I like to keep, notes in my Google Calendar,
yeah,
for all of the upcoming conversations I have, and you can populate your list of topic prep for people as it occurs to you, right? Like, catch those butterflies in your butterfly net whenever it pops into your mind,
yeah.
not just in the minute before you see them.
One of the things I really like about what you're pointing out there is that for a lot of us, getting um, mired down in the morass of small talk
Yeah.
can be really dreadful. And if you've offloaded some of that cognitive load in terms of getting the conversation started, and even as you're saying, taking 10 seconds or 30 seconds to think about, well, what might I talk to Allison about her sister, or about her kids, or something like that. It it at least lets you avoid talking about the weather or weekend plans.
But we don't need to avoid the weather and weekends activities
Yeah.
entirely. The
Right.
mistake most people make is they stay there way too long.
Okay.
Beat, one turn about the weather is enough to do this social ritual to make it feel like, "Oh, yeah, we're having a conversation now." The mistake people make is not pushing past that quite quickly. Topic prep will help you do that. So we can have a beat about the weather. "It is beautiful here in New England today. Beautiful. How's your son? Is he still in New England?" Right? Like, if I had thought ahead about that, it helps me move away from the mundanity of the weather to
Yeah.
something more meaningful, quite quickly. The mistake people make is, like, circling the drain, not saying anything exciting, meaningful, relevant, thought-provoking for too long.
Yeah. You were just asking a question, how's your son? Is he still in New England? And in making that, in putting that question out there, it kind of gets us to the second of the principles in talk asking.
Mm.
And you were asking a question there as a way of raising a topic, but give us a little bit of a sense of what the range of the considerations are around asking.
Yeah. Questions are asking questions is the most common way that people switch topics, uh, but it's not the only way to switch topics.
Hmm.
I could just start talking about something wild that happened to me recently,
Yeah.
and that's fun too.
Yeah.
Um, but questions often help us switch topics. They also have many other functions. For example, follow-up questions also help us stay on topic and
Hmm.
dive deeply into it. A follow-up question is where I
Right.
ask you some sort of probing or, it's another thing about what you've just said, anything you've just said, or even something you said earlier in the conversation. So question if topics are like these fundamental building blocks of conversation, questions are like the hands that pick up the blocks and move them around and poke at them and help us figure out, well, what is beautiful about this block? What is interest? What is there any glitter inside this block? What can we uncover about it? That's what questions do. And there's a lot of conversation about the importance of perspective taking. Uh, Turns out humans are not good at perspective taking. We just rely on our own experiences and project them onto other people and say that we're taking their perspective because it's hard to guess what is in someone else's mind. It's impossible to know what they've experienced in their life cumulatively and that day. The only way to actually understand someone's perspective or learn about their perspective or get their perspective is to ask them, "Hey, how's your day going? What happened earlier today? Anything weird? Anything scary? How are you feeling? What are you upset about? What are you excited about?" It's the most direct pathway to actually enacting perspective taking.
You talked about questions and asking questions as this way of exploring topics. And that's a rosy picture on asking questions, but I think there's a dark side here too.
There are there not all questions are great. When I think about good question types and bad question types, on the bad side, it's almost less about, um, the question itself and more about the pattern of turn taking that unfolds around the question.
Okay.
So one example is what we call boomer asking, which is not about boomers, Andy. It's not about a generational thing. It's
Oh,
a
thank
reference to a
goodness.
boomerang. We love all humans of all ages. Um, it's about a boomerang. So it would be like I ask you a question. Let's say I ask you how your weekend was, and you give me an answer. And maybe you even share something really lovely, like, oh, I went and picked apples with my wife.
Yeah.
And instead of following up on that with you, I'm like, "Let me tell you how the apple orchard went with my kids this weekend."
Right.
Immediately, right? So it's the arc of the boomerang is coming right back to me and my
Right.
perspective very, very quickly. It's important to achieve a back and forth, a ping-ponginess of mutual sharing, but you cannot do it immediately after someone has shared something with you because it's insufficiently responsive to them, and it makes them feel like you didn't actually wanna hear their answer to begin with. Even if in asking you about your weekend, I did actually wanna hear, but I'm gonna make you feel like I didn't listen to your answer.
When you were talking about the acronym, you were talking about the T, the A, and the L leading up to the K, and I can see there a connection between the asking and the kindness. Are you really focused on the other person in terms of what you're asking questions or not?
And for sure, though I will say, question asking is so powerful that even if in a fleeting moment you think to yourself, I should ask a question right now.
Right.
And by asking that question, it's not really in the sincere pursuit of learning and curiosity and gaining wisdom, but really just to keep the conversation alive or because you feel a sense of obligation to do it.
Okay.
That still is an act of kindness. It's a way of saying to your partner, "I care enough about this conversation going well. I care enough about this not being awkward for us and for you that I am willing to offer you this olive branch of a question,
Yeah.
even if I am not dying to
I'm
hear the
yeah.
answer."
I'm gonna keep this conversation going. We're gonna keep it on life support one more step
And
and
I'm and
see
I
where
and
it
I
can
wanna
go, right?
continue to engage with you in it, right? Like, I
Right.
care so much about this being good for us that I'm gonna do this asking behavior.
Now, the other thing that I recall you, sharing with me at one point is if there's all of these things about asking questions and then there's boomer asking or those sorts of things, there's the far end of the spectrum, which is folks who don't ask questions at all
I
and the impact
know.
that has on a conversation.
I know. We call them ZQs, zero question askers. This is a phrase from a lovely woman that I've encountered in my work. Her name's Rachel Greenwald. She's a professional matchmaker. And she did this project where she did exit interviews
Uh-huh.
from dates.
Uh-huh.
Why did people want to go on another date with somebody or why didn't they? So the sort of good and the bad. And so often, the number one reason people don't want to go on another date with someone is because they were a ZQ or not or an insufficient question asker.
Right.
Um, ZQ kills the conversation. You should really, no matter what your goals are, no matter how competitive or conflictual or what's happening, you really should never leave a conversation having asked 0 questions. It's almost universally a sign of conversational failure.
Well, can you go to the other extreme? Could you ask too many questions?
That's the right follow-up question. As soon as you start saying, "Okay, well, we all need to ask more questions, and we're gonna try and avoid boomer asking, we're gonna try and ask more follow-up questions," um, is there a tipping point? So, like,
Yeah.
when does many questions become too many questions?
Uh-huh.
As with all things that are context dependent, it depends.
Okay.
In very cooperative contexts or conversations, let's say dating, where
Mhm.
you're especially early on in a relationship where you have so much to learn about each other, there we see no tipping point. It's like you can't possibly ask too many questions. The people who ask more questions do better on the date, regardless of gender, regardless of the content of what they're talking about. It's just like you and your date partner are so aligned and you have so much to learn that you couldn't possibly overdo it, on average. Um, in But that starts to be tempered when you think of different contexts, like, our goals aren't aligned, or maybe we're negotiating and it's very tense, and if I were to just keep berating you with questions, it starts to feel interrogative and like I'm trying to get information out of you that I'm gonna use to exploit you. In the same way we were saying about gotcha questions, right? You might start to question my motives of why am I asking you these things? And that's where
Yeah,
you need to be able to read the room and figure out like
yeah.
what's an appropriate amount of questions. Even in conflictual situations, we have data from negotiations, from
Right,
sales calls, which boy, talk about is there any more annoying context and or conflictual than a sales call? Um, Even there, we do see a tipping point. We have
right.
the data set of like, I don't know, 2,000 sales calls and 30-minute sales calls. When you get to the point where the salesperson is asking more than 3 questions per minute for the entire call, this is quite an extreme of question asking. You do see a sort of curvilinear point where their partner likes them less and it's less effective. But still, even at that very high end of the question asking spectrum, those levels are still significantly higher than asking too few. It's quite clear that even in these conflictual situations, asking not enough questions is the more common and more detrimental problem. Aren't making them feel like you're going to
Right,
exploit them, like they're like
right.
you actually care about them and wanna understand their
Yeah,
perspective and their needs.
yeah.
One flavor of question asking that helps us do that is open-ended question asking, as opposed to, you know, as opposed to like, uh were you late to the meeting? Were you driving your car? Was there traffic? Which feels very accusatory. Open-ended questions. What was your morning like? What was the traffic like today? And even within open-ended question asking, which solicits a lot more information from your partner and feels less accusatory, even within that, we find the wording matters. So starting a question with what are you excited about? What do you like eating for breakfast? Maximizes both information exchange and likability and relational outcomes. Questions like, "Why were you late?" or "How did you get here?" The why questions can feel accusatory, and how questions are easy to answer, but they're less informative on average. So these open-ended what questions can be quite helpful.
That's so interesting. The why questions can feel accusatory. Uh,
Why do you think that's interesting, Andy? Why are you shaking your head? Why are you skeptical? It's like these it's too directly trying to access
right.
your motives, and it puts people, makes them feel
Yeah.
defensive.
One of the other things that you've also pointed to in terms of the acronym that you love to hate or hate to love of talk
Oh,
is
no,
this
I love
idea.
to love talk. I just love
Okay, but
other
acronyms
yeah,
themselves are
yeah,
not so great.
yeah.
Levity. Uh,
Mm,
Now, levity on the one hand, uh, this conversation just feels wonderful in terms of having it. But I know that in some contexts, people are really, really concerned about whether humor is appropriate in a business context, and it can
yeah,
seem unprofessional.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what is it that's important around levity in terms of engaging in conversations, and why should we focus on that? What does it even mean to have levity in a conversation?
Yeah. Levity, I think it's easy to very quickly think of humor and laughter, and that's obviously part of it. But levity is broader than that. Levity is any moment in conversation that pulls you away from low arousal negative feelings of boredom, disengagement, sadness, depression, these low energy negative emotions that often lead people to disengage from a meeting or from a conversation or even from a relationship. Um, it's so easy to think of conversations that fail because they're too explosive, they're too hostile, too angry, these sort of high arousal
Right.
emotions.
Well,
What the
it's flashier.
It's flashier, it's more
Right.
memorable, it's more
Right.
salient. It's a bigger headline, but
Right.
it's actually more common for a conversation to fail with a silent sleeping pill. Like,
Mm,
we all know this. We all see and hear
right.
really boring conversations all the time that we don't leave feeling energized and, um,
Yeah.
healthily provoked from. And
Right. They almost
that
starve to death.
they starve to death, and then it's in a missed opportunity. Like,
Right.
every time you're with another person, it's a chance to learn from them and get excited together, and if you're bored, you're missing that opportunity. So levity moves, whether it's humor or novelty, like just changing the subject, or just warmth, pulling people back in, making them feel engaged and safe. Compliments, expressing gratitude, focusing on them after you've been, focused on yourself for a while. There are all of these moves that just help snap us back in, make us lean forward towards each other again to be able to achieve anything else. And I think that's the top line thing I want people to think of when they think of conversational levity. Yes, it actually makes us more happy, it makes us more productive and joyful, and that matters unto itself. But it's not just in service of happiness. We have to be leaning forward and engage in order to achieve any of our goals,
Mm.
even the very serious, hard ones. If I'm disengaged and bored and disinterested, we cannot negotiate a problem. We cannot
Right.
make a tough decision. We cannot brainstorm important ideas. And so levity is a sort of end to itself, but also a stepping stone to
Yeah.
all the things we care about. And unfortunately, the lack of it is just a rampant and pervasive problem, in especially live. What's so funny is sometimes we don't realize how common a problem it is because so many of the conversations we consume from public discourse have been edited to maximize levity, to maximize engagement. The pauses between turns are taken out. The boring bits of the conversation have been edited away. And so everyone seems so interesting and engaging because they're incentivized to put out public conversations that are engaging. You don't realize, oh, so many of the things that we're talking about privately at home and at work
Right.
are very boring.
Yeah. They're curated.
But we
Yeah.
can make our real conversations, we can make our reality, uh, resemble it more closely because we have, agency over using more
Right.
levity, deploying more levity in our
Yeah.
conversations. I always start this part of the course by saying, like, "Guys, I'm so sorry. I can't make you funny." If you're not if you're not funny, I may not be the one to make you more funny, but the good news is you don't have to be funny. That's not the
Yeah.
point. And in fact, trying to be funny is kind of the wrong goal.
Yeah.
Trying to be funny or seem funny is a self-interested thing. It focuses yourself
Right.
on this. The better frame is, how do I make every interaction fun
Yeah.
for my
Fun, not funny.
fun, not funny.
Yeah.
And even if you're not great at making it fun, you can be really good at making it feel safe and warm and engaging.
Yeah. That's what now, talking about engaging, one of the things that I'm curious about now is thinking about kindness.
Mhm.
And you've talked before about how that's a matter of connection to the other person, but what is it that we can do to really signal that the other person's really being seen and heard? How can we reinforce that connection and the kindness?
Yeah. In my class, I define kindness as caring about other people. And I don't know if I can make my students care about other people more. We just assume that they do, hope that they do. But the second piece of it is showing it. So care about other people, but also show it. And for whatever reason, many of our instincts in conversation lead us to fail to show other people
Mhm.
that we're listening to them, that we care about them, that we want to support them even when we disagree with them. And so much of it seems sort of simple, but it's the stuff that we forget to do, especially when our relationships or our conversations are tested, or when things get tense. And so we work on two things. The first is listening, and the second is receptiveness to opposing viewpoints. So people who believe things that are quite different than what we believe.
Yeah.
The listening part of it is a very important first step. We all know about active listening. It's like this thing that's been in the zeitgeist for decades of
Yeah.
smiling and nodding, leaning forward, eye contact, convincing your partner that you're hearing them. The problem with active listening through these nonverbal cues is
Uh-huh.
that even here, as we're talking digitally, you can be smiling and nodding, and you're actually very busy thinking about the next question that you might ask me. And so you're not listening that carefully to what I'm saying. Um, it's really important to find grace for that reality.
Mhm.
In some of our research, we have found that people's minds are wandering at least 25% of the time during conversation, and we suspect that is a
You
massive.
mean you're not listening to me 100% of the time?
We suspect that for some people, especially people who are very creative or have attentional issues, it could be upwards of, 75% of the time your mind is actually wandering away from the conversation. And it's not a problem. That's just how our brains were built. And
Right.
often our brains are doing really amazing things to tie ideas together, to think about connections, to work so hard to refocus our attention on the
Mhm.
person we're listening to. So that's kind of like listening, the nodding, the smiling, the eye
Right.
contact, leaning forward. That's sort of listening 101. That's the
Right.
basic, like, yes, you need to try to listen to other people and use nonverbal cues. What becomes advanced listening is using your words to show someone that you've put in the hard work to hear them. And that sounds like repeating things that you've heard them say, affirming the things that you agree with, validating the feelings that they're expressing to you, paraphrasing what multiple people have said during a group conversation, asking follow up questions because you can only do that if you heard them in the first place. Using callback, so, like, referencing back to something they said earlier in the conversation or earlier in your relationship, even better. Long-term listening.
Yeah. You
Um
listened and remembered. Right.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
callbacks are just a genius move. I mean, if you can listen and remember to bring it up later, like, you've won the conversation game. You've won the relationship game. You're doing great. So all of these things you need to say out loud, and for whatever reason, when we're in the chaos of conversation,
Right.
we forget to say those things out loud, and we need to say them. The people that we think of as sort of charismatic and good conversationalists, often this is what they're doing. They're
Yeah.
they're putting in the effort to hear people, processing what they say, and then expressing it back to them in some way meaningful way that, like,
Right.
"Hey, I heard what you said about this that thing that you experienced or that crazy belief that you hold. Like, I wanna hear more about that. Tell me more."
Yeah.
Um, it's sort of the
Yeah.
secret sauce of
So
good listening.
it's a matter of being responsive in your listening, not just attentive in your listening.
Right. Attentive, then responsive, and ultimately sort of understanding and receptive. That's what pushes you, to the next level is you're being responsive, you're listening out loud, you're showing you're listening even when, or especially when, things get hard. And in that moment, not only do you need to be sort of attentive and listening, but also, like, deeply non-judgmental, deeply open to their differing viewpoint, and that's very, very hard.
It's so hard in those moments to be curious
I
when
know.
you wanna, storm the battlements and defend your position, but really staying open to the other person's point of view.
We have such an ingrained instinct to win and to be right and to be
Yeah.
knowledgeable and to be credible and to
Yeah.
believe that what we believe is true and correct.
Yeah.
The longer I am a scientist, the more I realize, like, nobody really knows anything with certainty.
Yeah.
How foolish of us to talk to each other like we do. And the only way to figure out what other people actually care about, what they actually need, is to ask them and to
Yeah.
really listen.
I want to explore group conversations for just a minute, if we could.
Yeah.
And what is it that makes group conversations different from one-on-one conversations?
Yeah. We're now in territory where I feel like your expertise outstrips mine, Andy. Group conversation is a it's very easy to think of group conversation and one-on-one conversation as the same task because it requires talking and listening.
Right.
But when you look at the mechanics of it, as soon as a third person pulls up a chair, it is a categorically different task all of a sudden.
Mhm.
In a one-on-one, both people are jointly responsible for keeping the conversation alive. You have to take turns, you have to listen, you have
Right.
to keep it going, and if you don't, it's over. It's just
Right.
one person talking at a wall. As soon as a third person pulls up a chair, one person could be completely silent the entire time, and they're still part of the conversation.
Right.
That's a very different dynamic. All of a sudden, there's a new calculus to figure out who should talk when, who should be taking the baton, how do we coordinate that? And there's now many more relationships at stake. One-on-one, there's one relationship. Every time a new person pulls up a chair and joins the group, the number of relationships actually increases exponentially because it's all of the people, all of the combinations of all the people in the group. And so navigating that complexity is so much more so much more of a coordination problem even than one-on-one, conversation.
You've talked about the goals in conversations, being information exchange and relationship as different dimensions. It feels to me like when you're talking about a group conversation, there's almost a third dimension that drops in there, which is the role that the various people are gonna play in that conversation, because that's part of the way that you're gonna navigate, uh, that space there.
That's a very nice point. That's exactly right. There's also and this is true one-on-one, but also in groups, there's always a secret access of time. Like,
Mhm.
we care about this thing. Do we care about it now? Do we care about it tomorrow?
Oh,
Do
yeah.
we care about it? Did we care about it 30 years ago? And so in groups, I think that plays out quite, poignantly because you can sequence the arrangement of the people in the group.
Yes.
One of the things I often think about is, like, what do I do that helps in group conversation? And my answers are often, um, well, I try to connect with people one-on-one first, right? Like,
Right.
before the group thing even happens, you wanna be coming from a place of love and trust in your one-on-one relationships and one-on-one conversations. During a group conversation, you can, as a good steward or even a good group member, you can help shape the structure, the sequence of the groupings. So you can break groups into subgroups. You can have people take a moment, reflect privately, pair them up, make them form groups of four, and then rejoin as the whole group. And I think a good leader, I don't know if the word leader is the right thing, but a good steward, um, of a group conversation should be thinking about how to structure the conversational patterns and group sizes to meet the needs
Yeah.
of that meeting.
And if the leader's not doing that, what's to stop someone else who's there from taking the initiative, leading from where they sit,
That's right.
and asking the question or making the suggestion?
And
Help.
there, like you said, these roles, I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many opportunities. If you're good at scribing on the whiteboard, if you're
Yeah.
good at keeping time, if you're good at remembering what each pasture should be about, if you're good
Right.
at asking questions, these are all roles that even people who on the surface don't have a lot of power,
Yeah.
if they enact those roles, those are so helpful to the group that you're sort of gonna earn status. You're
Right.
claiming your power, the little
Yeah.
power that you might have, claim it. I mean, the
Yeah.
person writing on the whiteboard sure has a lot of power. You can write
That's
down
right.
what you think is important and what the
It's the
group should
power of
know.
the pen there.
Power
Right.
of a pen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about connecting with people ahead of time
Yeah.
and building bonds of, as you put it so nicely, love and trust.
Mm,
What are your thoughts about the interplay between conversation and trust?
mm. Well, when you talk about what are our goals, you mentioned there are like 2 axes that I think about that I think everybody actually should be thinking about. One is informational. High informational goals are about accurate information exchange. Low informational goals are like, I wanna keep a secret, I wanna conceal information, or don't have to do with information at all. So, like, I wanna protect privacy, I wanna have fun, I wanna rest, I wanna feel peaceful. The other axis is relational. Low relational goals are things that I need. I I need to leave this conversation because 'cause I'm tired. I wanna make a good impression on you. I wanna persuade you to agree with me. The high relational goals are things like, "I've hurt your feelings and I want to make you feel better, so I'm gonna apologize." I wanna have fun together. I wanna entertain you. I want you to not feel awkward. I wanna learn about you. I want you to feel heard. I want you to feel understood. I wanna learn from your expertise. All of these things that serve your needs and us as a pair, as a group, collectively. We live in all 4 of those quadrants. All of those needs matter. But when we think about building trust, it comes from a sort of relentless focus on the high relational side of the map. It's how do I actually convince people to trust me, or how do you convince people to trust you is like sincerely caring about what they need and giving it to them.
Yeah. I can see that expanding into also giving people a greater sense of belonging in the group too when they're engaged that way with that level of respect and
Right.
care and people being curious about what they could contribute to the conversation.
Because you truly do care, right? Like, you
Mhm.
recognize that every human being is equally valuable and that you have things to learn from them, ideally through conversation and question asking. And if you can make someone feel that, you will earn trust with each other and give them the gift of a sense of belonging of that is true. It's not performative. It's like you really do want to learn from them.
Yeah. Now, you talked about, just a few minutes ago about, people, eh, kindness being particularly important when you disagree with someone. Yeah, if you're coming from different places, what would be the if you're gonna give, a nugget of advice to somebody, nugget of advice about how to approach a conversation where you disagree with somebody, what might you point to?
Focus less on persuading them, focus more on learning their perspective. We have such a profound natural tendency to want to be right and to persuade people to agree that we're right or agree to our point of view. It's incredibly strong force within all of us. To the extent that you can push that drive away and instead truly try and learn not only what other people believe, but why they believe it,
Mhm.
learn from them. The relationship's gonna be better, the conversation is gonna be better, you're actually gonna learn from them, and ironically, you will ultimately be more persuasive because you will be in valuable relationship. The way persuasion works, it's very rarely that I'm gonna change your mind dramatically within the boundaries of one conversation. It's more like, maybe if we have a great relationship and we trust each other and we interact productively over time, you may bend to the gentle pressure of my differing view. You may come to see my position more clearly and come to believe the evidence that I'm citing to support that view slowly over time, but almost never within, one sweeping moment where you declare some incredible point of view with such amazing data that everybody's gonna change their mind. It's not how the human mind works, not how relationships
Yeah,
work. Um,
yeah. You're
but
picking
over
up that thread of the impact on time on the conversation as well, that
Mm.
through progressive layering of conversation over time, deepening the relationship, building the shared understanding, and opening each other up to each other's perspectives.
I think about this a lot, Andy. This is one of the things that kinda keeps me up at night about conversation is in order to do it well, every relationship is just a repeated sequence of conversations over time, and to do it well, you do need time together. You do need to have conversations. You also need to respect people's time. You need to not bug them too much. You don't need to bother them. You need to give them space and spaciousness and time to recover and all the things. And so that's hard to balance unto
Yeah.
itself. A lot of leaders that I talk to, I think in theory, they're like, "Yes, I agree with everything you're saying. You're right. I need to prep topics. I need to ask more questions. I need to make sure people aren't bored. I need to express my good listening. I
Mhm.
need to be receptive to opposing viewpoints.
Yeah.
How will I find the time to do that? How can
Yeah.
I don't have the wiggle room in my calendar or in my life
Right.
to actually devote to all of these things." And I think the thing that I grapple with, and I hope everyone will grapple with, is like, I don't think you have time not to do those things.
Yeah.
You're wasting your life and opportunities and your time with other people if you're not
Yeah.
devoting it to those,
It
prioritizing those
yeah.
things.
It strikes me in what you're saying that they have time enough for bad conversations.
That's
Maybe
right.
they maybe they could, you know, devote some of that to having a better quality conversation. It's not that you're necessarily even the point you were making about topic prep. It's the 5 steps down the hall before you encounter me that you think about the fact that, I've got a son and a wife and that I went apple picking and you wanted to ask me about that. I mean, that takes almost no time, but it's the spark
Yeah,
that
and
builds
maybe it's
builds all
not
those
always
connections.
it's not always personal, it's
Yeah,
more like, "Oh, also, I knew that Andy was going to Dubai to do this really
right,
amazing deal, and I really wanna understand, like, how did that go? Was it hard? Like, what was difficult
right,
about it? Did you get too much sand in your shoes? Like, what
right.
happened?" But just that
Yeah,
quick moment ahead of time of thinking
yeah,
about it means we're more likely to find the spark, to find
yeah,
to actually thrive. What you described is like, yeah, you're making time for bad conversations. It's so true. It's like you're surviving your social life rather than actually, taking advantage of the
yeah.
opportunity with every person you come in contact with.
Talking about surviving your social life, I'm curious, what is it that would be some of the most common ways that people accidentally shut down conversations?
Mm. There are so the laundry list of mistakes that we all make is so, like,
Oh,
impossibly
no,
long.
it's a minefield.
I know, it's a mind meld. Well, there's things that there's errors of commission, things that we say
Okay,
that we shouldn't, like boomer asking, right? Like,
right,
there's also things that we neglect to do that we should do, and
uh-huh,
I would put, follow-up questions are
right.
really high on the list. I think it's very easy to shut down good conversation by simply failing to ask the next question. And it sounds so simple, but it's like if any time someone shares almost anything with you about themselves, about their work, about the world, ask the next question. Like, ask, "Why did you think to tell me that?" Or, "What's exciting about that to you?" Um, it's almost always that next question that actually digs out the treasure from what they're sharing. That's where things get more interesting and vulnerable and connective and exciting. So that's a big one. Don't shut it down by failing to ask the follow-up question.
Yeah. But you also gave kind of the converse there, which is, uh, if you wanna do a conversation upgrade, ask the follow-up question. I mean, it's
Oh,
kind of the
yeah.
obverse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Any
Yeah.
other great upgrades that you'd suggest? Do you have another, uh, nugget on that
Callbacks,
one?
callbacks.
Callbacks.
Yeah, I'm gonna call back to callbacks.
Yeah.
Callbacks are so magical because they always give you the opport if you feel like you didn't stay long enough on a certain idea or topic,
Mhm.
you can al circle back isn't really quite the right phrase,
Right.
but you can call back to it as a way to say, "Did we cover this enough?" They also show that you were listening. They also show that you're quick-witted, right? Like, 'cause that you
Mhm.
remembered to bring it up. They're almost always pretty funny. Not funny is
Uh-huh.
not even the right word. They're, like, sparkly. They're
Yeah.
like it's a way to say, like, "Oh, I was listening to you, and
Yeah.
look at us having a
Well,
good time
it's that
together."
moment of connection. You're bringing that back again.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
try and incorporate more callbacks, for sure. I'm trying to think other quick wins. Topic prep is a very quick, easy, huge win. Um, when you start new topics, starting them with open-ended "what" questions. That's been quite, life-changing for me as well. The other thing that one other thing, and this is not about what we say to each other, but, where we look while we're doing it. Um, one finding that I have found quite profound is realizing where we direct our gaze, and this is for group conversations in particular. We so naturally look at high status or high power group members. We'll find yourself doing this and you're like, "Oh my god." Both because they spend most of the time talking during a meet more airtime on average, but also because we're, like, looking to them to give us to tell us, like, w what tell us the norms. How are you feeling about this? What's funny? What's allowed? What's safe? What's not? What's important? What's not? And so most people tend to look more at the high status group member, which naturally makes low status group members feel boxed out and
Yeah.
invisible, like they're
It's
not even part of the
it's just
group.
self-fulfilling.
It's
It just keeps
self-fulfilling,
yeah.
it's a weird spiral. So pushing yourself to make sure that you're meeting the gaze of all people,
Mm.
um, as often as you can. Oddly, like, even if you just have a nice shared glance with somebody, um, without exchanging any words, it makes them more likely to participate in the conversation later whenever they might have something valuable to share
Yeah.
because they don't feel invisible.
increasingly people interact with text.
Mhm.
And it's not just email, but just little blips of text messages.
Mhm.
And we also have the surge, as is an understatement, in people interacting with AI
Yep.
and having what feel like conversations in an artificial medium, if you will. It's not another person on the other side of that. It feels like it, but it's not another person. And I'm curious, in terms of thinking about technology now, and what you would think as the, if you will, the challenge you'd throw to us about how to preserve, enhance conversations in an environment where increasingly technology is dominating the way that it's disintermediating our conversations.
Yeah. It's such a big question. I'll try and answer this in 2 parts. The first is about the sort of mania of
Mhm.
toggling across different modes of communication that we're all doing now. I want you to imagine if I asked you to write out a comprehensive transcript of all of the incoming and outgoing messages in your life across all communicative media. So face to face, phone
Right.
calls, DMs, text messages, emails, Snapchat, whatever. I know you're very active on Snapchat, Andy. So
Uh,
I'm gonna
uh,
need your receipts there.
yeah,
But imagine you had a comprehensive transcript of like 20 minutes from a busy
right.
communicative time in your life. I ask my students to do this exercise. What it highlights is, 1, we're just toggling like crazy all the time now. Um, there are interesting things to unpack about, is that good? How do we take advantage of what is text-based communication helpful with? When is it harmful? How obligated are we to respond to people in across different modalities? Do I need to respond to everybody? How quickly? But it also underscores, my students almost at all without fail say this, is when they look back on those 20 minutes and on those transcript, the face-to-face communication are the only ones that felt real, that felt memorable and meaningful and like part of their real life. That's very important. It's important to remember that email and texting is productive and for transactional information exchange, but real life happens mostly face to face and in other modalities with people that we actually will see face to face or have seen face to face previously. Um, People are 30 times more likely to laugh face to face than they are anywhere else. They are 34 times more persuasive face to face, not just 34%, 34 times more persuasive face to face than.
That's mind-boggling.
It's crazy. It's crazy, but when you think about the human brain evolved to communicate face to face. Like, we
Right.
were built to look at each other and read each other's body language and be together and all of the messiness of conversation together. We were not built to be, like, sending emojis and email hundreds of emails every day.
Right.
It's useful, it's incredible, it augments our lives, but it is not the same, and it is not as rewarding as face to face.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, is sort of like,
Right.
how do you design your conversational life? How do you design your work to optimize across these different modalities? One way that I think can be helpful to think about the differences between them is face to face, you have verbal content, the words, nonverbal, which is everything coming in through your eyes, and acoustic, the sounds. How does someone sound
Right.
when you're with them? That's a lot of rich information. It also is happening synchronously. It's relentless and it's live, and that's exciting and wonderful. If you close your eyes and have a conversation, that's a different experience. It's like having a phone call. Um, any other mode of communication, phone, email, text, video chat, limits those cues in some way, some very meaningful way. And so it's just less information rich, and they tend to differ in terms of synchronicity. So, like, I can wait 4 days to respond to your text or not, or I try and show you, "Hey, I care about you," by getting back as quickly as I can. So that's sort of the toggling: problem, opportunity, and answer. The other piece of this, which you framed so nicely, is how is tech, including AI, augmenting our conversational lives? How is it improving our conversational lives? How is it disrupting our conversational lives? How is it replacing our conversational lives? It's doing all of those things. And I like to imagine a world where we build tools and habits to take advantage of how it can make our conversations with real people better. Um, and avoid the tools and habits that replace too many of our real conversations with humans and disrupt them. I mean, there's this amazing study. So my friend Angela Duckworth has this amazing new study where they manipulated for kids how close their phone is to them, literally like how far a
How
distance,
many inches of
how
yeah,
many inches, how far away is it from you in the school? Like, is it down the
right.
hall and locked in a locker versus sitting in your backpack at your feet? The further the phone is away from you, the higher your test scores, because it is a portal to a different world that is incredibly disruptive to have
Yeah,
nearby. If it's in your hand and you're trying to talk to somebody, it's the opportunity to look down and be like, "Oh, yeah, hold on a second, let me Google that." Blah, blah, blah. That disrupts. I mean, in some ways it can be helpful, but it disrupts the natural flow of face-to-face connection. And if you're doing that over and over and over and over, um, you're not getting as many real reps of practice. For kids, that's incredibly problematic because they're just learning to have conversation. And for adults, we really need to think carefully about balancing the pros and cons. Um, I think you know this, one way that I've been trying to leverage this is we together built this
yeah,
AI version of me, and it knows all of the content from my book, it has transcripts from lots of
yep,
podcasts, and we've been sort of had our hair blown back with I think I'm impressed with it and for so many reasons, but the thing that I feel so encouraged about is it's not a bot that's trying to replace conversation. It's not
right,
trying to trap you into using it as much as it can.
right.
Instead, it feels like sincerely the goal of it is to help people think through their communication challenges as a way to prepare for the next one that they have with a real
Yeah.
person.
It's the ultimate topic prep,
It's a better version of topic prep
right,
with a very, very informed, available, forgiving, safe coach.
right,
It's better than what you could sit down and do on your own just making a bulleted list.
yeah,
And so that feels exciting to me, uh,
yeah.
as a way to augment real human to human conversation.
When we started, I said, "We get to have a conversation about conversation." And, I have to thank you. This has blown my hair back as little as I have of it, but it's blown my hair back as well. So, Allison, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andy. You're amazing, and it's been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're amazing.